How's it going, folks? Richard from KS Customs. Here we are going to review the Haslab Dragonfly. I got my buddy Steve with a completely unique perspective coming from a designer point of view. Steve, introduce yourself.
Hello, my name is Steve. I am from S3D Toys, and I am the guy who designed the Dragonfly that you see right here that everybody is now starting to receive at their doors.
So, tell people what the process is like when you're designing something. Do you how much do you look at like actual helicopters and base it off that, off just the G.I. Joe models, or a combination?
There's a multiple of different factors that play into it. So we did look at, we have our whole development team, and so we had our project leader who he basically had presented. It was a PDF of different things, so different examples of different helicopters, different features, and of course we had the initial Dragonfly model, the one that everybody knows from the 80s, everybody had. And so they wanted to keep true to a lot of those features, but obviously updated, because I mean that's what the classified line is all about.
Right.
More updated, more modern, but still being able to offer that nostalgic feel that we see here and we feel when we look at these toys. And so one of the things that we did, of course, had the Dragonfly, but then they had different pictures or photos of, let's say, other aircraft. We looked at the Super Cobra. We looked at, I think one was called the Viper. We had a Cobra. We had Apaches that we looked at. And so I know that the design manager at the time, there were a couple key things that he focused on, that he really wanted us to, key points that, okay, he wanted to include this, maybe take away from this. So one of the things that they wanted to do was modernize the canopy. So that was a big thing, to where it could open up on one side for the driver or the pilot, and then the opposite side for the gunner, which is true to a real world, like an attack helicopter like the Cobra.
Mm-hmm.
And so after that, I basically started on one sketch or one 3D design, to where I started getting some of I started with the canopies first and just some of the front end. And then they wanted to focus on, if you remember, the old Dragonfly had, the little gun on the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
And it didn't really do a whole lot. There were a couple things on it that were a little bit plain, so they wanted to update that to something more modern. And of course, the tail being very nostalgic with how it looked. And the funny thing is, nobody there knew what to really call it. They didn't know if it was a turbine, an engine, if it was a rotor, if it was a radar. I mean, they kept naming off different things. And so finally they decided they wanted to give that classic feel to that. And a lot of people, I don't think they realize, this end piece here, if you pop it off, you've got the original look. Although I had designed it a little bit bigger, but for obvious,
it rotates.
Yeah, and it rotates.
Doesn't make this.
And so at one point, I think they agreed it's maybe like a stabilizer.
Mm-hmm.
So that does rotate, and then you've got the cap that goes back on it. And then of course, now these features here, originally my design, it was static. So any of the articulation stuff added, that was Mark Foster who did all that. Same with adding, these having it be to where it rotates. That's all Mark Foster is doing. Some of the engine detail was definitely taken away. But again, so I presented to them, it was 7 different models.
Mm-hmm.
2 of them that were more advanced stages than others. And the one they chose, being this one here, is what we now see in front of us. Obviously, there have been some changes done to it.
Right. The lights floored me when I saw them on this thing. This thing is beautiful. First of all, it's massive.
Yes.
And we will talk about your prototype later.
Mm-hmm.
And just a little spoiler, we will see one of his original prototypes. But when you brought this, it completely floored me. It wasn't even put together when I originally saw it. The tail hadn't been connected. And then he brought it today complete, and I was dumbfounded. And then he's like, turn down the lights. And the display, it's one of the most amazing things that I've seen. The little touches that they added, you know, the way the missiles fire from the side and not just protruding, but actually how it connects. Like some of those little details that they've added to this makes me really regret not backing it. Originally, because I'm not big on the classified vehicles just because they're so massive.
Well, why do you think you own the ones that I've designed? Because, well, I mean, I have no room for them myself, so I get you.
Yeah, they are so massive, but every time without fail, I've regret not backing them. The Hiss tank, I regret not backing it.
Especially today?
Yeah, especially today. And the little touches that they add to this, but there are certain things that from your original design that I prefer, but I understand for cost and for effectiveness why they changed certain things on it. Like, I really love the detail that you put in the engines. Like, it's amazing. And how it's very minuscule on this. It's almost, and your design up here to me feels sleeker, but I can understand the reason they do it, especially when you're mass producing something.
Yes.
It makes sense, but all in all, I mean, this is a home run. This is one of the most beautiful pieces I've ever seen. Down to even the display is amazing. Like it's the little touches. Wild Bill looks awesome, but here's an issue that I have with the classified line that I've mentioned multiple times is they can't seem to pick an era. And they bounce between Vietnam to modern to futuristic. So there's so many different eras that they're touching. They just need to pick something and stay there. Wild Bill, like if you want to, I get it for the nostalgia's sake, but first of all, the man shouldn't be wearing a cowboy hat, which you've even said. I mean, he should have a helmet. I get the cowboy hat, but he should be wearing a flight suit.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, or you know, you can go with that, but they're meshing a lot together, so it's. But I get it. It's fantasy, so who am I to argue?
Well, yeah, and in the original, you know, Wild Bill, obviously, you know, a lot of some of the guys had fluorescence, and
I mean,
obviously not real world military.
I've always said, I mean, the practicality of the fact that Quick Kick was an actor walking around barefooted with no shirt on, you know?
Right. Now, one of the things though I will say though, with this being classified, and I think their kind of goal behind it is to make it more classic, more modern, and so in that aspect, I wish. I mean, the sculptor who worked on Wild Bill, he did an amazing job.
Yeah,
he looks awesome. But it would have been cool had he come with maybe, you know, a flight helmet, and maybe a vest to put over to change. You know, so he'd have like the flight suit look. I mean, why the
outfit kind of has it. It's a similar flight suit, but I think that's more or less the. And not to crush anybody's, you know, fantasy thoughts of Hasbro, but Hasbro has about 3 bodies when it comes to the classified figures, and I think it just may be mashing using already existing molds for bodies. It kind of looks like a flight suit, but I think they just happened to paint what they had for, you know, but it works in that aspect, I guess.
Yeah.
But it's just. Like I said, it's a meshing, but I can't complain because of how overall beautiful it is, and the sculpting on. Like we've had so many misses with head sculpts lately coming from Hasbro.
Oh yeah.
I mean, you know, if CoverGirl is one of the worst I've ever seen. You know, we're not going to mention Falcon. You know,
we're not going to mention Falcon.
Yeah, I mean, and CoverGirl for being supposedly being a model looked like she transitioned.
Right.
Poorly. It's just very square jaw, very just doesn't look very. It looks like a poorly made action figure. It looks like it wasn't modeled correctly, honestly. And the sculpting on Wild Bill's face is amazing. So everything about this is a home run. Anything small that I have issues with is just honestly just nitpicking. It's nothing, no real complaints other than the fact that I don't own it, but I wouldn't have place for it because if we move this a little bit that way, what tends to take up a lot of my space. Why don't you talk to us about this, Steve?
Okay, so this was one of the prototypes I had worked on, one of the initial designs. Because again, I worked on 7 total. And like I had said, there were 2 that made it past really more conceptual phase. And so this wound up being, this would have actually been my choice. Although I am now glad looking at it that they did go with this model. There are some changes that obviously, and I understand why they did this. Now, even on this one, I did add more engine detail.
Yeah, you can see that.
Yeah, there's a lot more detail on it, but due to costing, tooling, stuff like that, it makes sense. Just like on this one here, we have these little doors, like they're, I don't even know what they're called, but they're, it's like a handle or a radar thing that they stick out. Those were, and actually I think it's just a doorknob or some type of a latch, actually.
Latch.
So these are more flush on the actual Haslab version, the one that was released, and that's because obviously these stick out and they would break.
Yeah.
So I get why they did that. Now it's more realistic the other way. Just like now we don't have it attached on this one, but there is a Gatling gun that goes on this one here, and we also had lights more in the front. On the initial design for this, that was removed. And the Gatling gun on this one, the gun itself does not spin.
Right.
Now the gun goes left to right, moves up and down, but the actual cannon itself does not spin. And of course I get it. I understand why they did that. It's probably a tooling issue. There are some things that were added and changed. Obviously, I love what Mark did in regards to the blast effects. I initially actually didn't even have guns on the side of mine, the front little cannons. That was added on. And then, of course, I love what he did with the pylons with the actual blast effect coming out and being separate. And so you can actually hook it up at, onto the pylon from the actual blast effect, which is very nice. Or you can just take it off and you can, have the missile on the way, if you don't want all that extra, stuff going on there. Now, the way I did the inside of the cockpit on this, I did make it a little bit more, I think, detailed. But because they're using gels on this, which is way better than a sculpted model, the gels look amazing. Especially when it's lit up, it's fantastic. Again,
when it's lit up, it looks like an actual helicopter, like you would see.
Yeah. Well, we'll turn the lights off shortly, and we'll turn the lights on this so you guys can see it. I mean, it illuminates. And what Mark did with that was amazing. I do wish that the initial plan was to have the lights up here blink, like a real one.
Right.
That obviously didn't happen. There are no lighting effects on the top. But, that's okay. Just like we were going to have marker lights on each of the wing. Normally on one side it's red, on the opposite side it's green. That didn't happen. And of course, that's because those pieces are modular. They plug in, and that would have made the cost on this, I'm sure, a lot more expensive. So I do like what they've done. Again, I have no complaints. I personally don't use the winch, so I don't have the winch attached to mine.
It is on this one.
Yeah, it is on the prototype. But again, for me, I didn't feel like the winch was necessary on something like this. But certain people are going to love it. Certain people aren't.
I do like the sleeker exhausts here than this bulkiness. Like this feels bulky.
Yeah, on that one?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I love the sleek on this one.
Yeah, that sleekness. But this is what when I was talking about how much sleeker this part looks.
Oh, the top part. Yeah, see,
I think it just looks... But that's probably just the tooling and bringing this down, too.
Well, but I actually like this one better than this product. I mean, that's why eventually when they said, hey, we're going to go with this model, I made the necessary changes, and I actually prefer this. I felt like this was, although I like this one, I prefer this one. The one that they chose, I just felt like was better. Definitely the engine detail on this one is better, like the exhaust, all that. Now the actual engine on the interior detail,
yeah,
there's no... Yeah, there is really it's very minimal on what we got, but again, that's costing and stuff like that.
Right.
And so, but other than that, I mean, it's a fantastic model. For you guys who are going to be receiving them soon, you guys are going to love this.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, the little details, even down to like I love the stickers. The stickers, it just and it looks like an.
Well, these are the ones that are actually stuck. Like these
right.
aren't even stickers.
These are. This is paint, right?
Yeah, that's all paint.
Yeah, I'm talking about the actual decal part.
Oh yeah. See, and I didn't bring all of them, but that's the one thing I will say. So for you guys who are back in the Ghostbusters Haslab, they were 100% accurate when they said that these decals you can remove and restick. It has a thicker vinyl feel to it. Again, another thing that Mark did, and it's phenomenal. You can actually, and I noticed right away it had a different feel, because the only one I put on was the chips and salsa on the actual cannon pods, and then I put the big Dragonfly logo on the base. We can take this off if you want. And so, and immediately I noticed it was thicker, and it didn't have like a residue feel to it.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, at one point I put it on the pod wrong, and I was like, oh crap. I was able to peel off nicely. It's nice and durable. Reapply it, and it was perfect. So you could probably remove and reapply, just like the Ghostbusters Ecto 1 that they're releasing. It looks like you're going to be able to do the same thing. So again, the decals are very nice. I'm not going to really put decals on mine, only because I like it stock. I think stock it looks amazing.
And they nailed the color choice and everything. The only color choice I have is like I don't understand the yellow. Maybe there's a reason for it that I'm not aware of, but it sticks out like a sore thumb to me. Like it just feels weird. I don't know.
Right.
But all in all, I mean, once again, that's just nitpicking because it's such a beautiful. It's just so beautifully done. Like honestly, anybody that got it is if anybody says they're disappointed, I don't know what else they could have been expecting.
Well, if they're disappointed, you're going to buy them, right?
I might.
Right?
I mean, the only thing that's missing, obviously, is the blades. You know, no mecha. But I mean, that's such a minute thing. And honestly, with the wiring that has to go inside for the lights, I don't think it would actually even really be possible without being. Well, probably bringing up the price quite a bit.
Well, yeah. So in order to have the lights for the tail and the wings, number one, because it's modular, they would have had to have a plug,
right?
And that would have brought the cost up. So I get why they didn't do that. The lights that we have are amazing on it.
Yeah.
I will say that as a whole, I mean, I don't normally keep anything that I design. In fact, you have all the stuff that I've done, like all my prototypes. You have the one for the hydrofoil. Right. You've got now the Night Raven, or part of it. You've got the Rattler. You've got a bunch of stuff that I've done, and it's because I don't have space.
Right.
I am making space for this, and this will be the one thing I keep just because it is beautiful, and you know I'm glad that Hasbro decided to go this route. You know when they chose the model. Because this one, and at first I actually kind of liked the other one a little bit better, but the more and more
I did. So when I first initially saw the photos, I liked the prototype better.
Yeah.
And then when I saw it in person, I was like, you know, they may have made the right choice. Like
I think they did. I think this one's better. And then I will say the finishing touches Mark put on it really just kind of. It's blown me away. So he added a lot of the rivets, things that I didn't add. I didn't add the rivets. Originally I thought this was kind of dumb. It flexes, but it works. I like it. I like it a lot. So that works real well. I like what he's done in regards to that aspect. I wish, again, certain things like the Gatling gun I'm not in love with. I know they went with the Tri-Gun. I feel like the one I had or the Tri-Cannon or whatever, the one I had designed, because this isn't the one I designed, by the way, this cannon. Mine was still 100%. Mine actually, the cannon was the same on all of them. Mine was definitely more detailed, better looking. This one feels cheap to me, but that's the only complaint I have.
We'd be showing his, but I packed it away.
Yeah. So that's the only one actually that's my only complaint, really, is just the cannon. Other changes that were made, I like. The figures are a little bit snug. They definitely had reworked some of the front on this, because the initial design, you were able to extend the legs out more. You do have to kind of bunch the knees up a bit, but that's okay. They still fit nicely. And again, this to me, it works. It's great. I'm keeping one for myself. Something I didn't think I was going to do. I thought I'd, maybe keep the figures, even though the figures are not my designs. I thought, okay, I'd keep, because I love Wild Bill. He's one of my favorite characters. But I'm going to keep the Dragonfly. It's amazing.
Yeah.
I've got 2 others. One I'm going to give my son, and one I'm going to keep sealed. So, but yeah, I mean, this is just, it's an amazing little aircraft. I mean, I love it.
So what grade would you give it out of 10?
Well, I designed it a 10, man. Of course. What do you think? A 10?
Well, you could...
A 10! A 10! A 10, man!
I mean, all in all, I mean...
Actually, on a grade, in all reality... Oh, and by the way, the reason why there's no mechanism for this spin, number one, because of how big the blade is, that becomes a hazard. Because even when I do this from here, I hit myself right away.
Yeah.
So you have to you want to give yourself some distance, because the wingspan on these blades are pretty big.
Yeah, and you can imagine a child doing that.
Getting hurt, and that's why there's no mechanism, plus due to packaging and stuff like that. So that made sense to me, but that's why we didn't have, there was no mechanism on that, because that was kind of brought up before. Just like also one of the issues they were talking about is making it to where these don't over time bow, and this is where Mark did something that was awesome. So my initial design was a little bit different, but I like what he did. So for you guys can see them, it's casted out of a really, number one, it's a very sturdy plastic. But by having this being separate, it's not going to bow. My initial design was a little bit different. Mark actually improved upon it, so I do like what he did with that. So I definitely give him a shout out for that.
Yeah, I really like these struts on this too. Yours doesn't have those.
Mine had.
We didn't bring them.
Oh yeah, no, mine has struts.
Does it?
Yeah, mine has struts. But mine, the design on it was different, and I think it was too low.
Maybe.
His just feels
higher.
nicer. Yeah, his just, it looks nicer on his. So I like what he did with that. Again, I mean, I'm real impressed with it. I was looking at it this morning. Unfortunately, last night it got real late. I put it together. I took some pictures of it with the lights out, but I didn't get to run around the house with the Apocalypse Now music.
So now we know what Steve will be doing tonight.
Right? If we only had little rocket powered stuff, I could be shooting it at my wife. Be like, kidding.
Just attach bottle rockets to it.
Oh gosh, right?
I mean, we're not saying to do that.
Yeah, don't do that.
But if you do, send me video. Yeah, I don't think they could have done much better on it. Like nothing, like I said, any complaint I have would be nitpicking. The detail on the engine, but it's for obvious reasons. You can see the difference in size between that and the one you have, which obviously would bring the detail way down.
Yeah.
And really, who runs around with the engine compartment off the whole time anyway?
Right. Yeah.
It's like when you have the Rattler.
Mm-hmm.
You're either gonna have no one was switching the panels. It was either battle damaged or it wasn't. I mean, very rarely did you switch those things, and half the time you lost them. So
I'll be honest, I never switched them. I mean, maybe on occasion when I was a kid, maybe if you did, but like you said, typically you'd lose them.
Yeah.
It's just one of those things where I didn't need all the extra accessories. Now, I do like the fact that the loadout on this, they give you some options. There's quite a bit of options for it. But for me personally, I put the loadout I want, and the other accessories, they'll end up in a bag, which they're in now. They're in a bag with the decal sheets and the extra, because the only figure I've opened up is the Wild Bill. I like the Glenda. I think I'm gonna just keep her in the cart in the box. And then the other two figures are okay, but I'm not gonna open them. I just wanted the Wild Bill, and I've got, what's his name in it, Airborne, and so because those are the two guys who should be in this as far as I'm concerned, and that's it. I mean, it's a fun.
So here's it, and I would definitely call this a home run. I would call it a 10 out of 10. Now here and this you can't be biased.
Mm-hmm.
You're rating this versus the Hiss.
Oh, I like this way better than the Hiss. Well, the Hiss isn't my design. I love the Hiss.
That's why I said you can't be biased.
Well, here's the thing. I like the Hiss. Actually, I love the Hiss because I'll tell you right now. Everybody who knows about 3D printing and 3D modeling, there's been Hiss models on Thingiverse and Yegi and all these other sites. Different people have done their own versions of it for a while now. So, as a 3D designer and printer, I always felt like when they announced they were doing, or when the rumors, because Hasbro, they add these little,
right,
Easter eggs, and everybody knew it was going to be a Hiss tank. And so I felt like, okay, if it's going to be a Hiss tank, they need to blow me away. Because I could just print a Hiss tank. I could design a Hiss tank. But when they did this one, and you can see the Cobra sigil and all that, and it lights up, and I really love the fact that the back compartment opens up on that. It reminded me of the Hiss 2, which actually the Hiss 2 is my favorite of the Hiss tanks. And I know it was after the Sunbow era and stuff, but I love the Hiss 2. I just thought it was bigger, beefier. It had the side cannons, and it was just a badass tank. And so I felt like for this, they need to blow me away, and they did. They blew me away. It's hard to compare the two. I do love that Hiss tank.
It is very hard to compare it, but I think basically what it comes down to, because they hit home runs on both of them.
They did.
I think basically it just comes down to personal preference, more or less, because I personally prefer the Hiss after seeing it in person today. But then again, the Hiss tank is one of my favorite vehicles, which is like, once again, that goes down to person. Like, I couldn't have been any more floored with this. So, I mean, they couldn't have done anything more to win over the Hiss. I just think the little detail, once again, the fine details is what does it. The lights on the Hiss, the back opening up, even the red accents. I love the red accents. The fact that they kept the 788 on it, like just the little details about it, it just floors me. And the fact that, I don't know if you noticed this, but take a look at it. How much that looks like Kit in the front.
I know. Trust me, and I'm a big Knight Rider fan. So I love the Hiss. Now, if you ask me about comparing stuff, obviously we're not going to get the Rattler till next year. Now, if you had to ask me, what do I prefer, the Dragonfly, the Hiss, or the Rattler is going to win every time. So as a kid, I always had a thing for the A10. Mm-hmm. I remember seeing it. I think we went to an air show. It was up in Vegas at the Air Force Base there. And they actually have a gunner range where they actually do the strafing and stuff, and we got to see that. And I remember being like in love with this thing. It was the tank killer, and I remember playing actually in elementary school. If you did so much, you got a good thing. We only had one color computer in the whole school, and it was a computer lab. All the other computers were all the green screen.
The green screen, yeah.
And there was a game called A10 Tank Killer, and you had to have had good grades or done something good to be able to play it, or to play the colored computer. And I think it was like 8-bit color.
Yeah,
And so I remember playing it and being in love with that game and loving the A10. And then when G.I. Joe had their Rattler and the fact that it was VTOL, also being a fan of the Harrier, it had these features that I fell in love with. So the A10 the Rattler will always be my favorite of all the jets. So other than, I love the Sky Striker. They're not going to do the Sky Striker in this. It's just
because it's a monster.
It's a monster. Well, they can actually get it to where technically it'd be about this size, but it's been done there. I think if anything, Conquest You know, so there's some other things that are in place that I think will be more modernized, easier for tooling and stuff like that. But again, wait for the Rattler. I love the Rattler. That's one of my favorites.
So did you have anything to do with the Rattler?
I did. And so there was a lot of changes made that I had nothing to do with, to it. But yeah, I love the Rattler. That was actually my first 3D design was a Rattler. Now, the one I've designed is different from the one that's the Haslab. But the Haslab Rattler, the one that, or it's updated, because that one belongs to them. And it's amazing. When you see it in person, trust me, you won't think about the hiss and you won't think about the Dragonfly. So,
well, we'll probably be able to do one of those videos because I'm pretty sure I could find your Rattler somewhere.
right. Well, and then of course I'm gonna have, I'll have the Rattler, so we'll do the review and stuff. Maybe we'll go around with the Dragonfly and the Rattler, around, pew pew pew, But I will say actually the only complaint I have, and it's not a major complaint. Again, it's nitpicking. I love the stand, but I wish the stand would have had some maybe articulation
to it.
But the one cool thing is, so you can have it to where it's facing down like that, so you can have like a vehicle here and it look like it's strafing, or if you want it to be more upwards, you can change it and it can be facing more up, so at a different angle. So I guess that is cool. I still wish there was some articulation to it, but I also understand, there's a lot of cost involved with stuff like that. It's extra tooling.
And then you have to worry about stability at some point.
Yes.
Because eventually that would wear down. That's
going to give, yeah. And so that's why this makes sense, but I would have...
These details, just
yeah,
amazing. Like, it's... The rivets, like, that's such a finite detail. That's something that I haven't seen on a toy in years. Usually you get something like that on model kits.
Yep.
That's why a lot of people like model kits, because of the finite details. And that's something that we haven't gotten on a toy, especially one this scale.
Not in a long time. I think, so one of the best designers to ever grace the halls of Hasbro was this guy named Greg. I always say his last name wrong, so I don't want to butcher it. It's like Bernstein or Bernstein. Anyways, I say his last name wrong, and I don't want to butcher it. He's the guy who, he designed the flag. Mm-hmm. He designed, I think he did the Mauler or the Mobaddy. I know he did one of those. He's who I based the unproduced train off of. It was his initial design. And this guy, oh my God, an amazing sculptor. He was actually showing me when I met with him at the DFW show how they would do the little... If you look at, a lot of actual real world, vehicles, planes, ships, stuff like that, you can see weld marks.
Right.
So he showed me how they would do the little dimpling to make the weld look like there's weld marks on the vehicle, and how they do rivets and things like that. And he really was. So if you look at some of these vehicles, and I think he also did the Defiant, and so his work, you could see, his stuff versus, let's say, other people's work, and that's why I kind of inspire a lot of my stuff based off of him, because he did that extra detail, the rivets, the weld marks, things like that, stuff that really would separate one toy from the other.
Yeah, I'm floored by this thing. He may not be going home with it. You may never see Steve again. No, it is a beautiful piece of work. They did an amazing job. I probably will start back anything Hasbro puts out. I might end up backing, even though I don't have room for it. I got a Jabba's sail barge sitting in my living room, still in the shipper. It's just. But I'm almost. You know what? I can't say I'm almost jealous, because it's great, but I really don't have the room for it. It's cool to look at as much as I love it, but the Hiss tank is a different story. that thing's...
Well, in the Hiss, you can actually fit on a nice little tiny...
Yeah.
Like, I actually normally would have that in my office, I have these shelves that have little cubbies, and it's actually in a little tiny cubby, so it actually fits. I mean, and when I'm saying little, I'm not belittling it at all, because his tank's massive.
Yeah,
it's
massive.
beefy, but it fits perfectly in there because it's half the size. It's why I don't keep the stuff I've got.
Yeah.
You know, my buddy Joe Troutman, I love this guy. He's one of the guys who was instrumental on the Unicron that was released from Haslab. Without him, I don't think...
Speaking of beefy, that thing...
Yeah, it's huge, and it's amazing. And I don't think we would have gotten Unicron without guys like him and Ben Montano and stuff like that. But I had this Terradrome that I designed at a classified scale, 44 inches, and I was so happy he was willing to take it, you know, because it was so big. I just don't have the space. You know, my house is smaller than my older house, and you know, when you're married, as it is, I take up 99.9% of the house. I'm lucky, you guys. I've got the most amazing wife, because I don't know of any other amazing woman like her, because they would have just kicked my ass to the curb. You know, I'd be sleeping in a fucking cardboard box, cuddled up with my Dragonfly, you know, to keep me warm at night. But she's an amazing woman. I mean, she's allowed me to acquire so much. And so I really, but even then, with that being said, I have too much, and there's no room to put it or store it. And so I'm keeping this, you know, I'll keep a Rattler, because the Rattler I'm going to hang up. I'm not going to use this stand for a Rattler, but I will hang up the Rattler, because I actually had the Rattler that you have now. I had that one hanging up originally.
So you have room.
So I have room, yeah. So, but this, I found a nice spot for it. I moved some things over. I love Bobby Valla. I love Action Force. My wife is in love with the Vanguard. She's in love with the Action Force figures. And I had that
stuff
on...
is, man, you know what? I cannot, like, comparatively to Classified,
I think theirs is better.
It's a better quality.
Yes, it is.
Better, the weaponry by far.
Yes.
And they're too, like, it's not all the same body.
And it's not. And, you know, I'll tell you, well, so real quick, I'm going to go to this one thing and then I'll go back to what you're saying here. So I had a spot where I had the Vanguard and, you know, some of the other figures. So I moved that over, you know, and I was like, yeah, sorry, Tori, I moved this stuff over here because I'm putting my Dragonfly right here because I love the Dragonfly. But being said, I found a nice spot for the Vanguard because the Vanguard still has to be on display in our room. My wife, shoot, I wouldn't even have the Vanguard if it weren't for my wife, you know, because I had saw pictures of it and I was like, you know, it looks cool, but I was like, space. But as soon as we were lucky enough to be placed right next to the Valorverse booth at the DFW show this year. And Bobby and his crew, just all of them amazing guys. And my wife was over at the booth looking at it, and she's like, you gotta see this, you're gonna want one. And she's like, come over. I'm like, no, I'm good. She's like, no, you have to check it out. And I'm like, God damn it. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna go check it out. And I was like, fudge sickle. I actually love this thing now. I'm like, why'd you do that? She's like, I told you you're gonna want it. And I know she wants the pink one. Ain't gonna happen, but she loves it. I mean, and we just love Bobby and his guys. He's more personable, you know. The things that he does charity wise, the giveaways, just even his customers, his fan base. You know, these guys were, you know, paying it forward, buying, like one guy was buying for 10 people in line a figure. You know, just really cool people. No. And Bobby's real personable, really nice. Everyone I know that knows him has nothing but good things to say, you know. And so, again, just and their weapons don't bend. They're not like cheap fucking, oh my God, it annoys me. So I love this thing. And again, I'm not going to knock anything. But had Bobby Valla done this, our Gatling cannon would have turned, and there would have been a little bit more, I think, realism to it. That's it. That's the only thing I'm going to say about it that's negative.
That's the thing is the difference between a huge corporation and, you know, a person, single grown company. I'm not going to say Valorverse isn't a big company because they are a big company.
Oh, they're huge.
But they've become huge. It didn't start off huge.
Yeah,
you know,
but
it
they
started
become
off
huge.
as an independent company, and that's where I think a lot of the big companies are losing. They're losing a lot of fan base because there's all these. You have independent sculptors out there that are doing better head sculpts and better action figures than Hasbro is.
Yeah.
You have, you know, you can get head sculpts on Etsy and you can get, there's people 3D printing vehicles and that you can purchase for, you know, I mean, they're considering the size, you're going to pay for it.
Oh, yeah.
But I mean, it's amazing. We're in a world with between 3D printers and just the access, the skill of some of these sculptors that are out there, and I don't understand. Like, if I was Hasbro, I would be looking at some of these people and hiring them.
Trust me, they're looking, but some of them that Hasbro does hire, but then Hasbro also, I think they're trying to compete with them. So you've got guys, talented sculptors like Mike Redman, who he did the Tight Chip character, and he even did the I Was Once a Man Cobra Commander, and his sculpting capabilities are bar none. I mean, just amazing figures, especially his female figures. I've got to bring you some of them, you know, especially if you like with the big bust, stuff like that. He really, he knows the female body really well, I guess. So, because his female figures are they're badass, you know. And then you've got like Esteban from Don Menart, you know. Am I saying it? Don? Yeah.
No, Don.
Yeah, and so he's an amazing sculptor. And then you've got, was it Blueberry or something? I think those are called Blueberry Studios, or I may be saying that wrong. So if I'm butchering that, I apologize. But they're one of the top sculptors right now too, with heads, and so you really have these amazing sculptors, and
they're killing it.
And then you've got other vehicle designers like Jeff Woodward and Joe from Joe's, and you know, you've got Sean Chow and all these amazing guys, including myself. I'm going to give myself props. I mean, I feel like I'm up there, but there's a lot of really good guys out there, guys who, I mean, they are doing amazing stuff. You know, even, and I may not be friends with Mark from Mark II Designs, but Mark II Designs, it's another amazing sculptor. You know, we have some differences on stuff, but I'm going to give props where props are due. He is outstanding. I mean, some of his accessories, they're fantastic. You know, he's a great sculptor. You know, and so I think Hasbro really, they do watch, you know, but I wouldn't wish on anybody to work for Hasbro right now. You know, Hasbro has burnt a lot of people, a lot of good friends of mine, you know, John Warden being one of the guys that was burnt, you know, so I wouldn't wish Hasbro on anyone. That's why I am happy we have guys like Bobby Valla. You know, I'm happy for all these independents out there.
What's that other one? Something Monkey Studios. The one they're doing the remember what they were called, the American Eagle. Remember they were the original little die-cast figures that came out. Oh man, he's got some amazing stuff. It's called. He also did the Monster Force action figures.
Oh, okay. I think I know what you're talking about. I don't remember the name, but there's so many independents.
So awesome.
You know, you got all these guys who are really talented. You've got amazing companies like Go Hero with Steve Ford's company. You've got, you know, Mike Polis, who's another, you know, he's running a company where they're introducing Action Man back, and I think Mars Attacks they're going to do something with. They've got all these amazing properties and these amazing companies, you know, and again, I think, or even, I'll tell you, Super 7. They have some licensed stuff. They have some original IP, but I
have issues
Brian
with
Flynn.
a lot. I have a lot of issues with some of Super 7 stuff. I mean,
quality-wise, I've never had a Super 7 product break.
I'm not a fan of their O-ring figures. I feel they feel cheap to me. It just, and now granted, I've only handled one, and
Which one did you handle?
Snake Eyes.
What was the big complaint about them?
It just felt cheap. It felt.
Did it feel like the? Okay, so I'm gonna tell you the issue with the Super 7 O-ring figures, except for the CoverGirl, is the O-rings are too small. The CoverGirl had the right size O-ring, but all the other figures are using the same one, and they're too small. If you switch it out, he won't feel so flimsy because the figure kind of goes like this.
Yeah, it feels.
You know, and it's because
Feels like it's gonna break. Yeah.
Yeah, but plastic wise, actually, I'll tell you, it's very sturdy, very strong. It has a good flex to it. I love them. The twins are my favorite.
I'm hit and miss when it comes to super, because they did everything they've done with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. It's a home run to me. Those are some of the most amazing things. Yeah. When they did the Joes,
the Joes look great. I think it's just another scale. So
it's a weird scale. And when it's competing with the classifieds, and they're twice the amount, it was a miss to me. It just wasn't. Yeah. It was bad timing. Had that been the only thing that came out, it'd have been great because they were closer to the cartoons.
Yes.
You know, which would have been great, but you're competing with classified that was coming out at that, and it was a miss. So it's just with their Joe stuff, it hasn't. I haven't seen a real big hit, but like there's a lot of other stuff that I love. Their reaction figures and they're intentionally old school looking.
Oh yeah, the 5
I absolutely love the reaction figures. Those are some of the best things. I know they don't look like anybody they're supposed to, but when we got action figures as a kid, they never looked like anybody they were supposed to.
Well, see, and that's the thing I had to get over. I think even with the first O-ring figure, so the cover girl, so the Reaction Plus is what they're calling it. I got the cover girl, and I'm looking at the face sculpt, and I'm like, I want to love this, but what's wrong with it? And then I thought to myself, I'm looking at the old cover girl. She's better than the old one, but this is an O-ring sculpt. Mm-hmm. It's different than a classified that we've been kind of spoiled, where you have, you know, the detail and stuff like that. Although there are some classified figures that are crap, but there are some amazing ones. Just like we have the Valaverse stuff that's amazing detail, and the paint and the face sculpts are just spot on. And so once I got past that and I told myself, okay, this is an O-ring figure, then I'm like, okay, now I'm liking it. Now I really enjoy it. I love the reaction figures. There's some that I'm like, okay, I'm not going to buy these, but we have figures that we wouldn't have any other time.
But you also have, once again, that goes back to those independents. You have people that are making O-ring figures. And then some of them have made replacement heads.
Yep.
And the sculpts on those things. And they're cartoon accurate, or comic book accurate, and it's like these people are flooring me.
Oh yeah, and there's even some companies who it's more, I guess you would call it knockoffs. So you have your Black Major stuff.
Black Major's been one of my favorites for years. I own so many Black Major bats.
Same here.
I probably have, I'd say 150 Black Major bats. Like those.
I don't have that many.
Those things were just because he put out so many different. Like you have the Dreadnought version, the Iron Grenadier version.
Oh yeah.
Just so many. Oh, don't worry about it. Sorry about that. Knocking toys down. It's just and then there was and then there was Red Laser, who I don't know if Red Laser's still even around, but they did awesome stuff. Like there's so much independent. I mean, third party knockoff. I mean, I know a lot of them are operating without a license, obviously.
Well, but then you have a lot of companies who they're not doing knockoffs. So you have Operation Recall, which is coming out, and that's really a cool line. My buddy Mike Redmond, again, I'm not going to say the name of what he's coming out with because he hasn't. I'm going to let him release that, and not to give things away. But he's got something coming out that's going to floor everybody. And he's got some amazing stuff that he's planning, and people are gonna, when they see it, they're gonna feel that nostalgic feel that we had when we first got our first G.I. Joe, and that's what I love about a lot of these guys. They really, they're filling these voids, and I feel like this Dragonfly, and I will tell you this, if it weren't for guys like myself and these the other 3D designers out there. I've never met the Spark Bebo guy. I know he did some stuff, but I'll give credit where credit's due. He, I think, was the first one to release. I think there were smaller vehicles.
Yeah, the
miniatures. But he was the first, really, to do something on Thingiverse and stuff like that. So if
those things are still popular,
and they are, and it's cool when I see people printing up these big diorama sets of these miniatures, and so without things like that, or guys like him, and guys like myself and Jeff and Joe and Sean and Mark and a lot of these other very talented designers, we wouldn't have things like the Dragonfly. We wouldn't have the His Tank. I think Hasbro, again, they do watch. And they're like, okay, this stuff's online, it's blown up. People are, 100,000 likes and things like that. They're like, okay, let's get in on this. And they did their proof of concept with the His Tank. And I think, now the Dragonfly and then the Rattler, exceeding the stretch goals, they have a hit. Now personally, I think you had mentioned something, yesterday, and I agree. I do think sometimes smaller vehicles are better. Like, I would love to see maybe like a, what's it called? The Armadillo. Mm-hmm. I would love to see, smaller vehicles.
The Shark.
The Shark.
The Triple T.
The Triple T.
I think, and it's my belief that I think they'll go that way. Even though they hit their stretch goals and they hit their goals, I think they'll go with the smaller ones just because, number one, it's more cost effective. Mm-hmm. And then I think you're going to hit a larger market. And,
yes.
And with something like that, and say your goal is $250 instead of $500, a $250 or $100 vehicle, you're going to let your kid play with it. You're not going to let your kid play with a $500 vehicle.
Well, this was actually about a $200, $250 vehicle. Yeah. But they here's the thing, but you're nailing it though in regards to price. If they do something that's a cheaper, smaller vehicle, I love for Haslab something like this, because this is the other thing. Your retailers like Target, Walmart, Toys R Us in Canada and Asia,
and now in Texas.
And soon to come, hopefully other cities in
hopefully
in the country.
Here.
But
I mean, it's going to ruin my business, but I don't care. Still Toys R Us.
I don't think it'll ruin it. But here's the thing, though. I think with those big companies, shelf space, that's real estate. Real estate's expensive. They want things that are going to move quick,
right?
And they want things that are smaller that can fit on the shelf. And you're not going to get that with something like this. So, and then there's such things as what's called buybacks. And that's a big thing that a lot of people have to worry about and be concerned about, especially when you are a big manufacturer. You don't want that, because you don't want to see this end up in a Ross store at a discount. Maybe as a consumer you wouldn't mind, but
as a discount because somebody swapped the figures.
Right, or something like that, yeah.
There's nothing in this world I hate more than figure swappers.
Right. That's why when I finally found that Falcon and Coral 2-pack, first thing I did was check to make sure it had the right head, because I saw online somebody had posted somebody swapped the Falcon head out.
Heads, yeah.
But
it's ridiculous.
And it is. So again, I think a vehicle like this, it's perfect for the platform for Haslab. But then Hasbro has Hasbro Pulse, which they're doing really well with that with sales. And then you've got the Targets and Walmarts and stuff like that for the smaller vehicles. I think actually small vehicles you may not see at Target or Walmart, because again, the buyback issue, things like that. You think
they'll do them as like maybe a Pulse exclusive?
I think it'll be Pulse exclusives. At least that's my impression. Before my exit from everything with Hasbro, that was one of the things that were discussed, where a lot of the Pulse exclusives, the mid-size vehicles. I think the smaller type stuff, like the little Ram cycles, the quads, that stuff you're going to see more at Target. Walmart's a big buyer, but I don't know if they're going to do... I mean, they may. I mean, you never know. But you're going to see a lot of the Cobra Island type sets, the exclusive, like... You're going to see that at Targets, and of course Pulse. But I think the Pulse exclusives, you're going to see more the mid-size. Like we did with, I'll tell you, the Vamp and the Stinger. Those are great. They were, what, $100,
yeah,
I think?
Something like that.
See,
it's my belief, just for no reason, and not discussing with anybody, just I think they're going to go, like I said, your Haslab is going to turn in the way. We're going to start getting more of your mid-size vehicles.
For Haslab?
And I think they're going to go in the way of play sets.
I hope so. Well, we have the first modular set coming out. That's it looks a lot like the surveillance port.
The only thing that makes me think that they might go the way of play sets is you had them go with Star Wars with the cantina,
Mm-hmm.
and for as basic as that thing is,
Yeah, but the cantina was for 1/18 scale.
right? But everything is a test market.
Oh,
We know
of course.
that.
Well, yeah. I mean, I could see them doing mid-size, small, like, and I think Lenny had
and
had
G.I. Joe
addressed-
was known for their mid-size play sets.
well, and they were, and the small accessory sets, the weapon sets, the little outposts, things like that. And I think Lenny did touch on that recently. He had mentioned that was something that they were going to focus on. I think the modular sets. I was watching one of their streams recently, like little bits and clips. It might have even been like maybe the Full Force or one of these guys who had covered what he had said that I saw that. But I know that is something that they want to do, the modular stuff, and I think that's cool. I think the mid-size.
To me, I think it's a way to bring in a new generation of collectors.
Yes.
A new generation of and like I said, as parents, and parents usually this is something a parent's going to buy. If a kid's playing with it, it's because the parent was into G.I. Joe. If you were never into G.I. Joe, you're not going to buy this for your kid. You know
No,
what I'm
definitely
saying?
not.
But if it's a small modular set or a medium size, for reasonable price, your kid wants it, okay, you're going to get it because it's something they can play with. And I think they're seeing, they pay attention, obviously they pay attention to what's popular and what's going on, but they're going to pay attention to your average collector right now, your average buyer is in their 40s if you're lucky. So you only have so many years, because once you get into your 50s, like, I don't collect like I used to. I'm like, as much as I love this, and I do regret not backing it, I wouldn't have kept it. I would have ended up selling it. I don't collect like I used to because I'm not as young. In 10 years, I'm not going to want anything. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to be 61 years old. Like, But if somebody's, younger, you got 30 years of collecting from them.
Right.
So I think that's what it is to me. And it's just my marketing mind. If you want to bring in new people, and you don't bring them in with... Now, granted, maybe once a year or once every 2 years, you bring out something big to wow them. But I think for the most part, you're going to bring in the little cool stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think the big vehicles will definitely be a Haslab, in my opinion. I think the $200 to $300, $400 vehicles, that's going to be Haslab. I think the more small to mid-size will be Pulse, and I think you'll see some smaller, like the quads and things like that. I think you'll see that with, your retail partners that they have. But I don't know. I mean, again, back to this, I love it.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It is beautiful. It is something that I would love it for, probably about a year or so. And like I said, I would end up selling it. Just size.
Yeah.
But it's something that I think, once again, if a kid gets its hands on it, they're going to... Even if a kid grows up, if the parent is a G.I. Joe fan and the kid grows up seeing this, it's going to will create new customers.
Oh, yeah, I think so. I think the other thing, this is the thing that Hasbro's really missing. Number one, and I'm just going to say it, I don't work for Hasbro, so I can now say this, is their CEO, he's got his head so far up his ass. Chris Cox is a moron. So that's number one. He came from Wizards of the Coast, which, I don't get me wrong, I love Magic, but the guy doesn't know what he's doing. And he's getting rid of key personnel, people who make that company great, and that's an issue. When you get rid of guys like John Warden, you're doing something wrong as a company when you do that. This is a guy who made the 25th anniversary modern stuff what it was, as amazing as it was.
That's
Without
one
him,
thing that does not get the appreciation it deserves. The 25th anniversary stuff is so amazing.
And it is. Well, it did at the time, but, things change. There's pivots. I think part of the issue was also, you know, Brian Savage, when he lost the license for the G.I. Joe Club, that also killed a lot of that, because they were the ones who kept producing more stuff. We would have gotten more figures that we didn't get had they would have. And he's a really good guy. He's really cool. I actually got a chance to talk to him a little bit also at the DFW show, and I wish they would have allowed him to keep it, because he was providing a service that nobody else was doing, and Hasbro wasn't doing.
Yeah, there were some amazing figures. It was
and they were, and it goes back to guys like, again, John Warden, and there was a whole big team back when there was an actual team of people who cared and loved the brand, and everything I've seen him ever work on, he's loved and cared about. And so, and he thinks and he looks at this stuff as being a fan, which is important. And so I think they screwed up with that. They're screwing up with the fact that there is no cartoon. There's no medium behind it. And there needs to
horrible movies.
You know, horrible movies. And I think...
Well, I mean, now you have the new Skybound comic books, which is completely...
Those are great.
Which is completely changing the lore. But I don't necessarily think in a bad way.
Yeah, no.
I'm intrigued by this, you know, by the Baron, not to spoil anything, but by the Baroness being part of G.I. Joe. Now, granted, it's early on. Cobra doesn't exist at this point. We don't know how it's going to go. But, like, Skybound is, like, they're taking a different point of view on it. Because even Duke says, like, when he tells who's he telling? He tells Flag or Hawk that he brings Baroness in, and he tells him, he's like, you should be court-martialed for just inviting her, because she's a criminal. You know, last time we saw her, wasn't she like escaping custody or something like that? And it's like, so you know her criminal background already.
Yeah.
And he says that's what he likes about her. You know, she questions authority. He needs somebody to keep him on his toes. So you know the seed's already planted there.
Yeah.
So like Skybound, like they're doing it in a different way, and I'm intrigued by it. Something that I think I would have been worried about before, but like it's, you know, it's just a different perspective. I'm really hopeful about it. I loved the Duke series.
Oh yeah, well. I did too. And here's the thing though, you've got this amazing comic, you know, or these comics, and you've got the original Real American Hero continuation from Larry Hama, which is still my favorite.
Right.
You know, so you've got this, but this is also geared more towards adult collectors,
right?
Adult fans. In order to get kids intrigued, they really do need a cartoon. And unfortunately, Renegades I thought was great, but that was on a hub network that
I loved it.
A lot of people didn't have. You had to subscribe to, and so there's issues there. I really feel like the
Renegades was done like so, and the if you ever saw the DVD when they talked about their plan for the second season. And how it basically got thwarted because of the movie and other stuff. Like their ideas of it, like how G.I. Joe was a renegade, like it was like started off as the A-Team, and then basically it was like leading into the fall. So we would get to the G.I. Joe we know, like it was just the beginning, and like there was so much meat on that bone.
It was great. In fact, if you had watched this series when it actually aired, the last episode, and this is when we knew that they weren't doing a season 2, was, and it's not on the DVD, and I wish it was, but Duke wakes up from this coma, and the whole thing was just a dream. And it was, actually, I think it was from the miniseries when he's on the stretcher, and you've got CoverGirl right above him, and the whole thing was a dream, and I'm just like, man, like, it was a cool thing, but again...
It's like the end of Lost.
Right? And Hasbro's notorious for doing stuff like that. You know, they
pulled licenses from companies all the time, and it's unfortunate. We do need it. I mean, even adults want to see a cartoon.
Yeah.
Like even if it's a cartoony cartoon.
Well, it doesn't even have to be. And you can do. Here's the thing, you've got Mattel, who has Masters of the Universe. Look what they did with. They had their one that was more sci-fi-ish, Kitty.
Right, Kitty. Yeah.
That was on Netflix, but then you also had the one that was done by. Kevin Smith. That one was amazing. Yeah. So you cater both worlds. You have your adult fans, you have your new generation of kids, and my son loved the newer one, and even like the one by Kevin Smith. I love the one by Kevin Smith. Yeah, I thought it was great, and
it was a different point of view, told in a different way. It started off a little weird, but
it did. But I liked that it was more adult. It was it was giving us things that we hadn't seen before, more stuff that we'd seen maybe in the comic. And so, for me, I was real impressed. But if they can do that, and if Nickelodeon or Viacom can, with Ninja Turtles, give us adult stuff and then give us stuff for kids, you know, 'cause that's what the Last Ronin.
Yeah.
That's going to be a Ninja Turtle movie that's for adults.
Yeah.
You know, why can't Hasbro do the same thing? You know, I think it is, they burn a lot of bridges, and, you know, I don't know, it's not the same Hasbro. But again, I know that eventually we're going to probably cut things real short. But again, thank you for having me here. And
so tell them where I'm sure they can see what the work you've done. Where can they see that?
s3dtoys.com. You can see I've got my designs there. If you have a printer, you can purchase prints there, or purchase design or the files there for personal use. I do allow people to sell prints, not the files and stuff like that. But if you want to sell print, that's fine. I normally ask people for a small little fee, whatever. But half the time, I don't even care anymore. You know, as long as my stuff's getting out there and you say, "Hey, this was done by S3D Toys," I don't even care for the fees anymore. Just give me a shout out. In regards to prints, if you want to buy a print, I do sell prints there. I don't typically print them myself anymore because I don't have the space like I used to, and any printing I do is for prototyping. Mm-hmm. So I do outsource. Gentleman right here, Richard, he's going to be printing some stuff for me here in the future. I've got my buddy Bill Beltek. He's also another printer that prints for me as well. So I do have guys who can print and stuff like that. So that's another cool aspect if you don't have your own printer. But printers are dirt cheap, you know. So I definitely recommend, you know, and they're easy to use. Buy a printer, you know, buy the files, check it out,
and they're fun.
Yeah. Sometimes they could be. You want to throw one through a window, but don't do that, by the way. But you just have to take your time. You know, YouTube University is a great place to go. And there's a lot of people in different networks. I run a Facebook group called the Ultimate G.I. Joe 3D Printing Group. We have a lot of great people on there. And again, I'm not part of the regular G.I. Joe 3D Printing Group, but there's a lot of good guys in that group too. So you've got the G.I. Joe 3D Printing Group, and then you've got my group, which is the Ultimate G.I. Joe 3D Printing Group. And again, a lot of really cool guys who will help you out. You just post, say, "Hey, I need help with this. What do you think about this?" If there's something you want that's not out, I've had people commission me for things to do designs, and people commission other guys. I know Mark, the guy who runs the G.I. Joe 3D Printing Group, the not the Ultimate one, but the other one, people commission him to do stuff. So again, there's a lot of amazing designers out there. But before we end this, I figure we can show them the light effects if you want to turn some lights out, and I'll take it off the stand here.
Can you pull off the camera real quick?
Right?
Here, go on.
So we have up on the top here a button that you could hit, and then you've got the illuminating for the cockpit. Let me bring this up a bit here so you guys can see it. The cockpit, oops, about nothing on there. Really illuminates. It's hard on here, but there's actually detail to the gels in there.
Yeah, they look amazing.
I mean, they really do. And at night, it just makes this look like it's how a helicopter would be. And then you've got, if you hit the button a couple times, it does different things. So you can turn the headlight off, just have the bottom on. You can turn the bottom off and then turn that off. You got just that button here, which is just strictly that. You hit it again, you get the headlights. You hit it again, you get the bottom and the headlights and that. And then turn it off, and then off. So again, you have some really cool features on this. If you guys are waiting to receive it, trust me, it's worth the wait. I know that they just started shipping. I know people here in the U.S. started getting them, I think it was on Thursday, landed. And then I received mine on Friday. And then I know that, you know, other people, just depending on where you're located, you're going to start receiving them. They're not going for too much more than what they went for on eBay, so if you didn't back it, you can still find people who are willing to sell and hook you up for a decent deal and stuff like that. I know my buddy Robert Lemoyne, who's also on Facebook, he has a couple that he's selling, that he's just parting the stuff out. So there's guys like him you guys can buy from as well, and other sellers. So again, if you don't own it and you want one, and this thing's got weight to it, so it's definitely worth purchasing. It's a fun little, or not little by any means, a big helicopter. And again, love twisting the blade here. It actually goes pretty fast.
Yeah, it's got some big, that's big clearance.
Right? And I just got to watch for my big gut that doesn't get in the way. You know? But yeah, I mean, I love this thing. It's great. Any changes that were made, that were done for quality control reasons, or done for, you know, drop tests, or you know, financial reasons, I get it, I understand. Any changes that were done, you know, to improve upon it, look amazing. So again, this is a fantastic helicopter. I love it.
Yeah, it's amazing.
So yeah, you guys, thank you for checking out this video. And then where can they see more of you, Richard?
You can follow me obviously on my YouTube at KS Collectibles, and you can check out my online store, kscollectibles.com. I do podcasts on the Shadow Network on YouTube, and also with Forbidden Panel. So I'm pretty much everywhere. If you check out KS Collectibles, collectibles spelled with a K.com, you can find all of my links for everything we got going out there, including my classes for customization, and I do videos on step-by-step customization videos. Pretty soon there'll be some 3D printing involved.
Oh yeah, and I can tell you guys firsthand, I was looking at some of his Warhammer figures that he painted. I can't wait to bring him some sculpts I've got, because, oh my god, and I wish I had known a long time ago, because I didn't know. So I can't paint faces at all. They look like, you know, Sloth from Goonies by the time I'm done with it. His work is, oh my god, it's amazing. So I will be bringing some stuff to you. In fact, I've got my buddy Mike Redman, who, again, another, like I said, amazing figure designer. I'm sure, depending on what kind of prices you charge, I'll talk to him, have him hit you up as well. He does some amazing figures and stuff. And so, yeah, I love your work you do. And so definitely you guys check him out as well.
So, thanks for watching. Catch you guys next time.
Later, guys.
Ooh, that dog is going nuts.